Hello and welcome to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, the show where we help you establish your author brand, increase the size of your audience, and sell more books. And I'm laughing because my dog just started drinking at the exact second that the live button went on. Oh, and by the way, I'm Lindsay Baroker, and I'm here with Jeffrey Poole and Joe Lalo, and just ignore the gentle lapping in the background if you can hear that.
It's ambient noise. It's good.
Luckily, we don't have a guest today, so it's okay if we're even less professional than usual. But we're going to try to answer some listener questions that have come in over the last few weeks, and we're also going to talk about I can't pronounce that word. Optimizing your Amazon sales page. I think the rum is already kicking in, guys.
This is going to be a great show. All right.
This is what happens when you record your podcast at night. You know, it's drinking hours.
Yep.
All right, before we jump into the topics and the questions, how about we go over some news and what we've been up to for the last, I guess it's been about 6 weeks since we've just had a chat amongst ourselves. So, Joe, would you like to go first?
Sure. I mean, I'm just going to go with the new news as opposed to the accumulated 6 weeks of news. But I'm just about finished with the second draft of my third steampunk story, which is tentatively called Ickerwell. And this is the one that I started as part of NaNoWriMo and technically finished as part of NaNoWriMo, but found that there were giant gaps in the story, so now it's twice as long.
I'm not going to say anything. That's okay.
I'm bad at writing short stories. I did pretty good on my first two steampunk stories, which were supposed to be NaNoWriMo. I think they didn't go over 75,000 words, but this one's 102 right now and getting longer. But that's almost done, and then that'll go to the editor. Actually, probably won't get to the editor in June because I have got my editor backed up at this point. And also, I updated my experimental story that I've been writing on Wattpad. I used to do a weekly serial just to see if see how that would go, and I did it for 30 chapters before I ran out of steam, and now there's 31 chapters because I was at a friend's house and I didn't have any of my longer material with me, so I wrote a chapter of that. So if you're on Wattpad, look me up, and you'll have a brand new part of an ongoing story to look into. And aside from that, tomorrow, January 27th, for people who aren't listening to this live, I will be 33 years old. My birthday is tomorrow, so hooray.
Feliz cumpleaños.
Thank you very much. That's all I got for my news. So we're going to go to Jeff now because you might have seen some interesting stuff going on in the video preview in the bottom there.
Sure. Okay. As for me, I'm actually in the hunt for a new fantasy artist and looking for my Tales of Lantari series. Don't get me wrong, the person I've had before does awesome work, but her price keeps going up every single time. And now that she's started a family, her time has become more involved with other more important things, so I'm kind of pushed off to the side there. So I'm looking around, seeing what I can find. Hopefully find someone that's not going to cost me an arm and a leg, get it done in a reasonable time, that sort of thing. Then the same thing, looking for the mystery novel cover. I'm like, is something I don't need anything fancy for that. I don't need a dragon on a cover for once. So I wonder if I might be able to. But between my wife and I, she's a really good, on the computers and the graphics programs. Maybe between the two of us, we can actually throw together the cover and make it look professional. So I'm experimenting with that. Let's see what are my notes here. Oh yeah, it's also experimenting with the typography skills with Adobe, and oh my God, is that a complex program? So for those of you that are masters at it, my hat's off to you, because that program is 1.5 billion little different things you can do to an image. I never knew they freaking existed, but each one does something cool. So, and my 6th Tales of Lantari novel is going well, and I hope to be wrapping that up soon. So that's it for me.
All right, you'll have to show us your mystery novel cover, and we'll let you know if it's professional enough.
Of that, I have no doubts.
Actually, I think Terry, our guest last week, is kind of the first person that's done his own covers. I think he said he and his wife had done them, and I actually thought, like, wow, that's totally looks like a professional cover. So it can happen.
Yeah, you really have to know what the heck you're doing. But yeah, he said that. Yeah, he and his wife. I was looking at the covers, like they did it. I'm like, talk about a way to save a buck. I mean, that's you probably did but then again, you have to make it look good. That's my problem.
Yeah, and space opera, you can just get stock photo ships and backgrounds. There's some pretty good stuff out there. Mystery too, you might be able to find stock photo stuff that works real well.
That's what I'm kind of thinking of, but yeah, I'll let you guys know.
And there are, I was actually, somebody was talking about covers this week with me and saying they couldn't afford them. And there are sites out there, designers, that will do pre-made covers as a kind of a way just to get some stuff out there that people can come and buy for like $40 or $50. So if you just go ask on Kboards, the Writers Cafe, for some suggestions, I've seen a lot of them promoting there. And you know, if you happen to find one that works for your story, with epic fantasy, that's always a stretch. There's not usually that many, but like mystery might be kind of, you know, usually like a dagger or I don't know, a cat solving the crime, whatever, on the front of the cover.
Picture like in a courtroom with a chalk outline or something. I mean, that might work there too, but you know, you never know.
Right. And oh, Joe, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
I was going to say it, but my other dog was drinking at the time, so it's just, they like to not be settled. Once I start talking, they get excited. Alrighty, so for my news stuff, got kind of a lot, but I think they're kind of useful things, so I will share anyway. A couple weeks ago, I had a Bookbub ad with my pen name for a boxed set that's in Kindle Unlimited, and everybody said, "Oh, you won't get a Bookbub ad if you're in Kindle Unlimited," because they like to, you know, pick people who are wide. Got it anyway. This was like the third try, though. I actually changed the cover up for it and made it more science fiction-y, so I could actually get into the science fiction category. The pen name writes science fiction romance, and they like to put that in paranormal romance if they accept you at all. And that's kind of not a good match, because usually paranormal romance is werewolves and magic set on Earth, and my stuff is space, you know, far future in space, no magic. So those people aren't necessarily the same readers. So I changed the cover to more generic spaceships and star background kind of thing, and it got accepted. It was a pretty big discount. It was $9.99 going down to 99 cents, and it had never been discounted around Bookbub before, so I think that was helpful. And it's totally worth redesigning your cover for a Bookbub ad. Yes, the answer to that is yes.
Absolutely.
You know, it was like $150 or whatever I pay for the cover artist to do the Photoshop stuff, manipulation. And the Bookbub ad, interestingly, if you are in Kindle Unlimited, you might as well try if you've never done it, because right now, if you've got a box set, my box set comes in at over 1,500 pages. So in addition to selling, okay, I think the ad was about $500 for all the countries. They don't really give you a choice to opt out of. And I sold about 2,500 copies just from the Bookbub ad. And because I was doing a Kindle Countdown, that was at a 70% royalty as opposed to just 35%.
That's a pretty good combo.
Yeah, plus I ended up selling almost 4,000 between I did some other sites too. And then I got about 1 million page reads from the Kindle people. So even though I don't have a lot of books in this series after that for people to go on and read, at least it was really profitable for that particular box set. So give it a try if you're in KU. If they take it, which, you know, is always a question, it can be worth it big time for the payoff. Okay, other news. I finally, after I've done ARCs before for readers to try to get reviews, especially of a book one in a series. Usually it's just been kind of emailing my list and saying, hey, are you interested in getting review copies? And then I ask them like to include a link to a review they've done. And it gets very confusing because I've been like emailing people individually. I decided in 2016 I'm finally going to start a Facebook group, like a private, I guess it's a closed Facebook group, and just invite some people in that were interested in doing the getting the advanced review copies and posting reviews, and that had a track record of doing it. And it's actually been quite fun. It's a fun group of people. They're able to chat with each other as well as with me. I've only got about 30 people in there now. I just recruited on my Facebook author page. So eventually I'm planning to put that out to the mailing list, and then I just have one place now. I put the files there. And there's a site called Book Funnel, I believe it's called. I'll put the link in the show notes, where now you can give them your ebook, and they'll give you a link for the two formats, maybe even a PDF, I think. And you give the link to their site to your readers, and they click on it, and then it also has all the instructions on how to download it on the Book Funnel site. And it's so all these people that, because these people are there, they don't know how to put it on their whatever their device is. And, you know, like I've never seen a Samsung Galaxy, so I don't know how to troubleshoot that and help them out with it. But these people at the Book Funnel, and This costs money, so just so you know, but it's not hugely expensive. I think it was $20 a year for the, for the first tier. They will handle all the customer support of helping your reader figure out how to get it onto their device. So, in
That's
addition to
handy.
being a place to store it. So something to look into. And so far the Facebook group, the private group or closed group, whatever you want to do, I think is going to be a good idea. I don't have to send back individual emails. I don't have to have a separate mailing list, and we shall see. I did just launch something, and it worked. I only have 28 people or something in the group, but I got like 20 reviews pretty quickly on Amazon, and I have quite a few international readers, so it's got some reviews on the other sites too. And I put the book up there like a week or two early, and so they could basically post reviews in the first couple days. So that worked.
That's an excellent plan.
Yeah, I suggest it. Last little quick note is that Bookbub now has a new release announcement feature. I don't know if you ever even have to have been, I guess you have to have had at least one Bookbub ad because you have to have followers. I don't know where these followers come from. I had 500 for some reason. I don't know how that works because I don't remember ever following an author after buying a book through Bookbub. But anyway, they will now, once you update your author profile on there with your new release, they will automatically send the book out. I think they review it first, they look at the cover and stuff. They'll send it out to the people who have followed you on Bookbub. So I had that go out to 500 people. And one person I actually knew on Facebook said, hey, I got your ad from, your new release from Bookbub today. So it actually worked. And they don't charge you anything for that, so it's nice. It's just basically sending it out to people who are already your fans from previous things. So all you have to do is get the Bookbub thing to roll in to start with, which I know is easier said than done in some cases. So, all right, enough blabbing on that. Let's move on to the listener questions and comments. First quick comment is that a couple people asked us to get more of our shows on the podcast to display in the feed. I didn't know how to do this, but I looked it up. It was actually really easy. It was just a WordPress setting. So if you are now subscribed through iTunes or Stitcher, you should be able to go back and see all of our episodes. I think it's going to max out around 100, so when we get to that, we'll have to figure out, maybe we'll have a special archives feed or something like that. But for now, you can go all the way back to show 1 and see how brilliant we are. You'll probably see that not much has changed, actually. Yeah. We still haven't recorded a show intro or anything professional like that.
No, not yet.
All right, first question besides that stuff. Brian Shea asks, I was hoping you guys could discuss the minimum word counts as currently accepted among indies. If you Google it, there's quite a range. I see 60K as a minimum for a novel, but some consider that a novella. I average about 70K for what I consider a novel, but I don't want to overcharge if I'm the only one using that standard. Could you give a generally accepted breakdown of short story, novella, and novel? I'll just answer it real quick and then let you guys chime in if that's okay, because I just copied this from the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, what their standards are for these different things. So they say this is for their Nebula award categories, and they call anything over 40,000 words a novel. 17,500 to 40,000 words is a novella. A novelette is 7,500 to 17,500 words. And a short story, anything under 7,500 words. My personal take is I wouldn't worry too much about it. If it's quite short, you can warn people and say it's a short story or a novella. Novels sell better, so if it's like 60, 70,000 words, I would just call it nothing. Just put the blurb and, this is my story. You don't have to say necessarily, this is a door stopper and you're totally getting your money's worth. But I don't know. Now Amazon includes the page count. I don't know if all the sites do that. I don't think that's true on all the sites. But at least Amazon estimates, so people can tell if it's 70 pages or 300 pages. But what do you guys think? We've kind of talked in the past about how much we charge for different word counts, but what are your thoughts on novella versus novel? Or at 70,000 words, should this person be charging as much as somebody doing 100,000 or more words?
The last thing I want to do is feel like a reader has been gypped. So I mean, like for instance, we've got some of the some of us, actually a lot of us have the perma-free titles, which are up to upwards of 100,000. You're not getting it. You're not being charged a penny for it. Yet you have let's say you have a short novel or a short story or a novelette or something that's say 20,000 words, and you want to charge say 99 or 2.99 for it. They're like, okay, where am I really getting my money's worth of one? Me personally, I've actually published several short stories, but I won't actually publish them by themselves. I'll usually wait till I have a couple and group them together, and then maybe charge like 99 cents or something for them, because I know I'm not really going to make that much of it. It's mostly for the fans to keep involved in the story and in the world that I've created there. With regards to like for instance, the science fiction SIFWA, as they call themselves, considers anything above 40,000 as an actual novel. Well, that's true there, but usually what I ended up doing, like I said, say this is science fiction fantasy. I'm not talking about the mystery. For the mystery, I wasn't too sure how long I needed to make the thing, so I went and looked at similar novels that were from other authors and see what the rough page count was, and that's was a title I actually shot for, and I planned on charging $2.99 for it, just because it's going to be nowhere near the epic fantasy. Even though my wife laughs at me because I haven't yet to wrap the thing up because I keep going, but I'm shooting for somewhere around that range, and I plan on making it match what everyone else expects from the similar type of a book in that same genre. So that's just my own personal experience.
Yeah, we've spoken in the past about sort of our pricing structures, but generally speaking, I think that the numbers that SIFWA uses is a pretty good rule of thumb. I usually my measurement was 50,000 words. I'll consider it a novel, so I was a little bit more, I don't know, conservative or less conservative, however you describe that. But I think that my usual aim, I would say, like especially if I'm going to be reading a book, is 75,000 words or so. Like that's what I would consider a good length. Like 50,000 is bare minimum for me. And once you're up over 75,000 words, you're definitely into novel territory, and then it just matters where on your pricing scale that's going to fall. Obviously, you're going to want to charge more for something that's 150,000 words as opposed to 75. But whether or not you're going to charge twice as much, I think as long as you've got a satisfying tale that's over 40,000 or so words, then you can start thinking about charging in the novel range. And one of the reasons I go with 5,000 is because that's what NaNoWriMo calls a novel, and so I sort of train myself for that as a minimum. And as for the shorter stuff, again, once you're getting below 40,000 words or so, you're moving out of the territory when I would normally even publish it. I would normally then, as Jeff says, I would sort of pair it up with other things until I have a more substantial book. So that's my feeling on lengths and publishing and whatnot.
How do you classify the length of your stories there? Like, for instance, if SIFWA says, okay, anything above 40,000 is a novel, and when we're fantasy writers going, okay, well, upwards up to say 100,000, we'll call that epic. And then you guys that write way the hell above the 100,000, do you mark that as egads? I mean, just where do you cut it off at?
Yeah, I don't know what goes like. Their highest official designation on there is novel, and that starts at 40,000. So I have heard epic being used for things over 100,000, although epic has other connotations. I don't think anyone ever goes higher than that. So we'll just use like prefixes like super epic and hyper epic, and go on beyond that.
Uber epic. There we go.
Uber epic.
I would say actually 100,000 words is not that long of a novel. When I was looking at agents back in 2010, before I got my Kindle, for kind of secondary world fantasy sci-fi, they were looking for stuff in the 80 to 100,000 word range for novels from new authors. They didn't really want stuff over that from new authors, but I would say 200,000 and above is epic territory. There you're getting into, I have one that's 210,000, and I think it ended up being about 600 pages, 575 pages at 6x9 create space. I think we might have had to do a smaller font than usual, but I think 100,000 words is actually about like if trade mass market paperback, about 400 pages. So pretty typical for science fiction and fantasy, especially fantasy. I feel like we really get up there sometimes. Just my take, for 70,000 words, that would be $3.99 for me is what I would put that at. I tend to do $4.99 or over for like 100,000 and over. I've only done the 5. I've got $5.95 I think on my 200,000 word one. To some extent, a novel is a novel, and you can't charge a whole lot more just because it's 3 times as long. So you might just not want to write something that long if you're depending if, or break it up into like I did
Break
that
it
with
volume.
my 6th and 7th Emperor's Edge novels. They're called Forged in Blood 1 and Forged in Blood 2. They're basically, it's one novel with a nice cliffhanger in the middle. And so that was my answer to that, just because I was like, wow, this is going to be, it would have been 270,000 words or something like that. And so I just wanted to be able to charge enough for both of them to make it worth my time. So, yep, for 70,000 words, I think you're solidly in the novel camp, and maybe you wouldn't charge quite as much as a epic fantasy, but and look in your subcategory too, see what other novels are charging that are novels, not necessarily novellas or shorter things. And
Was that the title that you said that your numbering scheme, your pricing scheme is like $3.99, $4.99, $5.95? The one that ends in a 5 instead of a 9?
all my my stuff at $4.95 is also $4.95 too.
Oh, okay, I was just curious.
Someday I'll go in and change them all. That's a lot of effort. Once you get a lot of books out, it gets to be a lot of effort to go in and change everything on every platform. So I haven't done that, but maybe someday, if I sold enough books, that could be like my Tesla right there. Those 4-cent differences.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next question. We have a couple questions here, so I'll just ask the first one first. This is from Sarah Raffle. And she asks, on past episodes, you've mentioned that if a series isn't selling well, the author should probably switch gears to another series. I'm wondering what you would all define as well. Go ahead, guys.
So what would be defined as well? Well, in my personal experience, if it's selling, I don't know, if it's selling less than, let's say 50 copies a month. I know even probably less than that, 30 copies a month. It's still letting you know that there's still people interested in it. I mean, I would say once the sales have gone down to maybe 1 or 2 a month, I was like, okay, you know what, it's time to maybe focus your efforts on something else, or else maybe time to redesign your cover, maybe change the blurb, something to get the people interested in it again, because obviously you need a change, or else it's time to focus your efforts on something else.
Yeah, I'm kind of weirdly practical with the way I look at my earnings these days since it's my job, so I'll sort of equate how much money I earn from a book to like a bill that I have to pay. So once you're looking at, like, from my point of view, once I'm looking at a book that's not earning enough to pay my smallest bill, or even really over the course of a month appreciably equaling anything I can actually use in my life, then I start to consider that to be not a terribly useful book. And if the series in particular, like I have 3 series, like actual series that are continuing. And if any one of those series got to the point where I just couldn't scrape together, like I couldn't use that and like say, well, that was my cell phone for this month, then I would really start to rethink that series, either thinking of how I could, put more life into it, maybe try to continue that series, or maybe just say, all right, that series is it's run its course, and we'll set it aside for a while and focus on the other ones that are doing better. But yeah, selling well, it's tough to say. You can look at your ranks, and usually you can sort of look at a book that's earned well in the past and just sort of keep track of the general range of Amazon ranks you are. And then once it starts falling out of that range, then and I think most of my earners are in the 10,000s range once they've steady stated. I haven't actually checked it in a while. But yeah, broadly speaking, when I'm doing, once I started doing this as a living, I was like, all right, Book of Deacon is paying my rent, and Big Sigma is paying my cable bill, and that's just how it worked out for me.
All right. Well, I guess we know which of your series are your big earners and what's only paying the cable bill. Although the cable bill's pretty expensive these days.
It's getting close to rent, honestly, sometimes.
You must have all those extra channels. All right. I would say, it is very subjective. What do you, what do you consider well? I would, if I'm not able to make back the expenses of getting it edited and of having the cover art design within a few months of publishing it, then that may be the point where I would start thinking, is this worth continuing? I think once you do make those expenses back, then everything after that is gravy. That's that's paying you for the time you put into it, and you have the rest of your life for that to earn out. And I would also consider too how much effort you're putting into promotions, because it's very natural for a series to start to fall off after a while. If you haven't put out a new book in a couple years, if you haven't run some ad campaigns and some sales on the first book, it will definitely drop off. So if you're kind of actively promoting it and it's not getting the kind of numbers that you feel that is typical in your genre, then maybe that's when you start thinking, okay, maybe it's time to try something else. I think I've said before in here or in a blog post somewhere, you guys follow everything I say, right? That before you abandon a series, definitely get a cover redesign and ask other people that you haven't asked before about the blurbs. Because actually a lot of times when people email and ask, like, hey, here's my series, it's not doing very well, I go and right away I'm like, oh yeah, those covers, you need different covers. So it just may be an outside eye that you need somebody to tell you that and suggest something. Or, because we're actually really bad at judging our own covers and things like that. Most of us are not art majors. We think that, like Jeff over there, what we put together in Photoshop is awesome. I don't know, some people are, I think a lot of writers either go one way, they either think their stuff's brilliant and they're awesome, or that we're really down on ourselves and when we don't need to be. So it's good to be somewhere in the middle, but yeah, definitely get a lot of outside advice. And I would, even if people say they like your covers, if the series has been out a couple years and it's just middling performing or it's really dropped off, I would say do a whole new cover design. And I'm doing that with my Emperor's Edge series this year, and I've done it with some box sets and stuff in the past. And another thing with doing a new cover design is you may, if you've already advertised at Bookbub or eReader News Today or some of the other main sites, your new cover may attract people that were subscribers before and kind of passed your book by. Even if it was a good cover, it wasn't their cup of tea. Because you see traditional publishers do this all the time, right? They'll reprint books when it's time, it's been a few years, and they'll try out new covers too. So definitely do that before scrapping the series and moving on to something else. All right, part 2 of that question. If a series has spanned several years, has multiple books out, and is well reviewed, and consistently sells 50 to 65 copies of each individual book in the series on Amazon per month, and on selling on other vendors as well, do you think it's possible for that series to increase its success, or will it pretty much always be mid-list? Asking what your thoughts on getting older established series and gaining popularity, or should she try something else?
I would say that if the unasked question would be, is she doing anything to promote the thing? You start throwing in some ads here and there and start seeing what works best for your book. I mean, you'll notice that the sales will go up. The more people that know about it, typically, and it's something I've learned with my own books, is the more I can get my first book in the series into someone's hand, then I can always expect a certain percentage of those, which is usually a higher percentage, to pick up the next book in the series and just keep going down the line. So if she can get that book of hers into more people's hands, yes, I think she can increase the sales on that.
Yeah, it's like if you change anything about your series, it's got the potential to revitalize it and like launch it up. But sometimes if you don't change anything, that will happen. You'll just someone in an influential position might mention your book. Any book, there's always a chance that your books can start becoming more successful if they're good books. And frankly, even if they're not good books, the right person says the name of your book, then it's going to start selling better. And once it starts selling better, success begets success in the ebook world. It becomes more visible, which means more people start buying it, which makes it even more visible. So I think any series, especially one that's been selling consistently and is well reviewed, always has the opportunity to explode, sometimes inexplicably. The one time I really showed up like on the literary radar, so to speak, when I started getting emails from publishers who wanted to do translations, and when the few times I've spoken to agents, it was because of a completely inexplicable sales spike at Barnes & Noble. I don't know how it happened. I was never able to track down what caused it, but I ended up getting a huge spike in Barnes & Noble for no reason, and it stuck for a while. So yeah, sometimes because of forces outside of your control, your book will do better. But even often, forces within your control, like improving the cover, doing a good promotion, changing the blurb. So absolutely, doesn't matter what the series is, as far as I'm concerned. There's always the chance that it'll go from mid-list to bestseller.
All right, and I would say that in some categories, or if your book is not easily categorized, if you're kind of between genres or there's not a category on Amazon, it may be tough ever to kind of hit that best-selling status, but I do think, it is possible to improve. And like I said, if you change the covers, that may be all it takes to really give it a boost. New covers and like new promotions. And I totally forgot what else I was going to say on this. Oh, I was going to use myself for an example because it's all about me. I wrote my first 3 Dragonblood books. The first one was a standalone. It was never meant to launch a series. It sold pretty well, actually. I think I had a pretty good cover. But then when I wrote the second one, I did different characters because I wasn't planning a series, and it sold okay. It sold a little less than the first one. And then the third one, I went back to the first characters because I was like, oh, maybe I should turn this into a series or something. And this sold less, so they were selling less with each one, and so I was kind of down on doing the fourth one in the series, which I had ended 3 with kind of it wasn't really a cliffhanger, but we were, they had to go do something else next. They had to go find a dragon. So I'd set it up to be books 3, 4, and 5 were going to be their own arc, and maybe then I could finish the series, but I was kind of down on writing book 4 because the other ones were they dropped off a lot. They weren't selling as well. And that's when I put the first 3 into a box set, and, new cover for the box set. And after about a month, I tried to get a Bookbub ad, got it, and I dropped it to 99 cents. And that ad, this is the only ad I've ever had that sold so many that it made the USA Today bestseller list just on that ad. I've never had that kind of luck on any Bookbub ad on any of my other stuff. And from that point on, I just left the series at 99 cents. I was like, ooh, it's doing good. Let's just leave it there, because I published 4 at the same time, so they could go on and buy that. And that was really the kickstart for that series. All through 2015, that series was my biggest seller, outselling my Emperor's Edge stuff, and it's probably right up there in the number of sales now, even though it's been out a lot less time. So you never know. Try something new. What I did was a new blurb with the box set, a new cover to give it a different look and feel. And I still to this day, I don't know why that particular one sold really well.
The planets aligned.
I wish all of my stuff was like that when I got a Bookbub ad. Can't complain too much, but you just never really know when, like Joe was saying, you never know when something will happen, and the one thing you try that's like the 20th thing you've tried will actually help a series take off. So I've ended up doing 7 books in that series, 8 books in the world, might do one more, and it's really been a big earner for me this last year. So
yeah, I definitely like what Joe was saying about in Amazon, you might not do a darn thing differently, and all of a sudden, for some inexplicable reason, the downloads, the sales just go, and what we as authors are doing are staring at sheets of numbers, going, "What happened? What did I do? I mean, how can I recreate this?" And you've got no freaking clue because Amazon will not tell. So, what can you do?
you go Google yourself, because somebody probably wrote about you on their blog. Seriously, that's usually what happens. What Joe was saying is somebody with a big following read your book and was like, "Hey, this one's free. Go check it out."
Yeah, I swear I hit the some sort of German book club, a year or so back, where all of a sudden in Germany the sales just went from almost nil to just blew up. I'm like, what? Okay, my wife's saying, did you have it translated into German? I'm like, no, these are all English speakers over there that I clearly want to read this thing, and I don't know why. It's got to be a book club or something. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah, when you're trying to figure out where that errant sales spike came from, the tool I end up having to use is I do a Google search, and you can go on search tools and limit your search to recent results, so like in the last week or the last 24 hours. And that will, if you see something come up that you say recognize that website, then that's usually an indicator, oh, this is probably where those are coming from. Unless you're the kind of person, and I am not, who has a list of shortened links with associated stats, and then you go through and see where are all these coming from, which clicks. I've never done that. It's a great idea.
Sure, you haven't done that. You're describing it very well, man.
Oh, I have what Google shortened links, and they do count it, but I did not go through and create individual ones for every promotion so I could track their relative performance. Again, great idea.
Did you just wink? Yeah, I think you just went. I didn't do it. Yeah, it was.
Well, if someone does do that, it's a very smart idea, and you can get a good indicator of like A/B comparison.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next question. Ellison wrote in and asked, and she's got 2 questions too, so I'll read the first one first. Would you guys consider covering the topic of marketing for female science fiction authors? I believe the genre bias is changing with the indie revolution, but wanted to know if there are possibly some marketing techniques that will, 1, promote men to take a chance on a female science fiction author, and 2, improve interest among female readers to the genre. I don't know. You guys are guys, and I write mostly fantasy, so I'm gonna keep this question in mind, and if we can get some more, as we get more female science fiction authors on, kind of want to ask them what they think about it. I think fantasies. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, me personally, I don't think I've ever really paid attention whether it was a guy or a girl writing the thing. I would think though, if you are a female author and you're concerned about whether or not, if you say you think men won't give you actual chance, shorten your name. Just like put first letter of your first name, then put your last name there and keep it that way. That's like, okay, why not? And then once you start reading it, then maybe it says at the end, thanks for reading. By the way, I have fooled you guys. I'm a girl, but you never know. I mean, it's like say me personally though, it's never bothered me. And I don't really care one way or the other. If the blurb catches my attention, I don't care. What gender the author is.
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. Generally speaking, I actually don't really even know who wrote a book until I'm done reading it when I decide I want to see if I want to read some more from the same author. And these aren't solutions to the problem, but like he says, shortening your name. DC Fontana I think is a sci-fi writer who for a long time nobody knew was female because of the first initial trick. And J.K. Rowling, I understand, made a similar decision just to sort of obscure gender. Again, that's not a solution. That's just sort of sidestepping the issue. The real answer to the question, how do you get more people to read your stuff, is just write good stuff. Yeah, you're never going to get if there is there are men who for whatever reason have made the bizarre decision they're never going to read sci-fi from a woman, and you're never going to get that person without tricking them. So those aren't the people you want anyway. And how do you get more women to read sci-fi? Write good sci-fi, because good books are good books. It's not an easy piece of suggestion to follow, but generally speaking, just write good stuff, and the rest should follow.
Yeah, write a good blurb. The blurb is what sells it for me.
Yep.
All right, I would say she actually had, I think her name's Ellison, and I wouldn't have known just from the name if it was male or female, so I almost wonder if it's even an issue for her, but I don't know. And I know Joanna Penn from the Creative Pen, she writes thrillers, so she initially published as Joanna Penn and then switched to JF Penn, because I guess it's the same thing. Thrillers are really male-dominated and a lot of male readers. So I don't know if she did any testing before and after and what the results were, if that works. I would say just kind of write a good book, and there are plenty of, even if only female readers picked up your book, there are plenty of readers out there for you to make a living eventually. If you get enough books out and you write well and people enjoy your stories, even if you don't get the other sex reading them. But I find with my stuff, I think it's probably about 75 to 80% female readers, and I'm just guessing based on the emails I get and interactions on Facebook and stuff. But then maybe 25% male readers. Even my Dragonblood stuff, which is the most romancy stuff I have out, I think I have more male readers in that series than any of my other series. And I don't know, I think it's maybe just because there's airplane battles. I don't know. But they got past the romance. I don't know, so it works for them. But it's probably not the issue if you're struggling to get your books noticed. I hate to keep going back to this, but cover blurbs. I think she mentioned that she wanted to get new covers, but it's not financially feasible right now, and that may be a case where it's worth looking into something like Kickstarter. And also, as I was telling Jeff, you can get pre-made covers out there for maybe $40 or $50. And even there are places that will do like the Photoshop. They're just buying stock photo stuff and kind of moving it around. And you can find designers that will do that for under $200. And I don't mean to say that's no money, but it is very feasible to do a Kickstarter campaign for like $400 or $500 if you've got a few readers or just friends and family that that care about you and have a little money to chip in. You may find that you can make that work with a Kickstarter campaign. I would definitely do the cover redos if you've done them yourself. If you've already got great covers, then that may not be the issue, but try that first before throwing money at promotions, especially if you've done some promotions and they haven't helped you find new readers very well. So simplest things first. It sounds really simple, but it very may well be the answer. And Ellison also wrote, what if you don't write about spaceships or aliens or dragons? How can an author like me who writes about time travel and medical science fiction entice readers? And I totally get it. Some genres are more popular, some tropes are more popular. Doesn't mean you can't find a readership. May be hard to make the New York Times bestsellers list. I have not done that yet, but you can make a really good living if you get, there's probably an article that you've seen before. It's oh gosh, what's his name? K Kelly, something like that. It's like 1,000 True Fans is the name of the article. If you just Google that, you'll find it. And if I remember, I'll put a link into it. Here, I'll write it over in the chat so I remember. And he's basically arguing that you don't need to be a bestseller. Whether you're artist, author, musician, you just need to slowly over time find your 1,000 true fans, and that is enough, no matter what you're doing, to make a living doing it. If you have 1,000 true fans that buy each of your books, and you're going to get other people that buy stuff too, but to make a living as an artist, you probably need less than you think as far as readers and books. A lot of it is just getting more books out there and having more series out there, and that comes with time. If you write quickly, you can make it happen more sooner, but it can still happen eventually. As far as time travel specifically, there are some time travel subcategories on Amazon. I assume you're already in those, but that's something to check out. I did a time travel romance with my pen name, and I will warn you that anything that doesn't go back to Scotland and have hunky guys in kilts, not going to be a bestseller, probably. No, it was all historical time travel was what was seemed to be really popular. Mine was a futuristic dystopian thing. It did okay, but I definitely noticed the category was full of historical stuff. With medical science fiction, depending on how far in the future your stuff is, I might also look I think there's a medical thrillers category on Amazon that isn't necessarily under science fiction. It'd be under thrillers. That may be something to look into. I forget the author that I read that, right? There's a lot of times with the medical thrillers, there's just a little element of, maybe there's a science fiction element in it, but most people, I think thrillers is kind of, often there's just a hint of a paranormal thing in there, so those type of readers are maybe tolerant to that. So that can be something to check out. Are you telling me I'm talking too much, Jeff? He's over there. How much rum is left in your glass?
Now, I was just going to mention, too, is you're going to find that anybody who's a fan of science fiction, people that read that will typically be willing to look at, that's the whole reason they like science fiction. They like to think about what could be, or what something that's always outside the box, and just reading the little description, time travel and medical science fiction. All right, curiosity piqued, so I would be willing to take a look. I mean, like I say, write a good book, get a good blurb, and usually you can snag most science fiction readers at least pause and look at the thing and see if if it interests them or not. So that's just me.
Yeah, as I said in the past thing is, if the book is good, I mean, I do write about spaceships in my sci-fi, but I don't write about aliens. And I was nervous at first that my sci-fi had no aliens in it, and would that sell? And it's again, it's paying a couple of bills. So as for and if it's got a good hook, if you write something well and you make it clear that you write that well, and you've written your blurb to sort of emphasize, especially when. A good way to put it is this: if you are writing science fiction with spaceships and aliens, then you are hitting all the tropes, and you can talk about that. It's a classic, it's exactly what you're looking for in sci-fi. But if you're not doing that and you're doing something more niche, then you can emphasize the niche, and people who are looking for something new are going to find that and be interested. Or so you can really go either way. No matter what you're writing, it's either novel or mainstream. And if it's mainstream, then you can lean on that. And if it's novel, you can lean on that. I think that there's avenues to gaining interest in both ways.
Right, and you may not ever make as much or become a huge bestseller writing the smaller niche stuff, but that, like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't ever make money. Or there's so many people on the web, and the profit margins are so high right now with ebooks, with the 70% royalty, that you don't necessarily need to sell hundreds of thousands of copies of something. if you sell 5,000 copies of each book you put out and they continue to sell modestly over time, you're suddenly making pretty good money. So it can happen. And if it doesn't, and you really need to pay the bills, you can always write billionaire, shapeshifter, werebear romances, because I hear those are big right now. All right. That concludes our question portion of the show. How long have we been talking, guys? 45 minutes?
Just
All
about.
right. We will just, I don't think this will take too much to talk about, but I wanted to talk about Amazon kind of optimizing your sales page, which probably goes in with all the other stuff we've been talking about really making your book appealing when you do manage to get people to your page. You want them to grab the sample or buy the book right on the spot. And I guess most of what we're going to talk about, some of what we're going to talk about applies to all the, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, and all those guys too. But Amazon's a little tricky right now because in the last year they've changed things. You've probably noticed there are now sponsored books all over your books page. And they've also changed where the book description area goes so that you only get a few lines before somebody has to click more in order to read the whole thing, which I find ludicrous, and I keep hoping that they're going to find that sucks and then go back to the other way, because there's like nothing on that whole page that you have to click more. You can scroll down for like 20 pages of reviews and about the author. Nowhere else do you have to click more to read, but for some reason they decided the blurb, the most important thing on there, they're going to shorten that up and make people click more. So I don't know what the deal is there, but it is an added challenge for us as authors.
Well, they need more room to put their stupid blurb, so they have to take the room from somewhere. So
they need it. Yeah, they need more room for their sponsored books, which
By
I
the
don't
way,
know.
the
Go
sponsored
ahead.
books confuse the heck out of me because for a while, like it would be like the book will have a tagline, the sponsored book will have a tagline like New York Times best-selling author blah or such and such award-winning blah, and if it's just written on your page, you think that is associated with your book, or whatever the book for the page you're looking at. Or like I'll be looking at my own Amazon page and see award-winning or award-nominated or bestseller, and I'm like, oh, did I? No, that's somebody else. And I feel like I can't be the only one who gets confused and starts associating the taglines of the sponsored books with the book page you're looking at.
so that explains the sales spikes in Amazon, where it's like one of these sponsored things comes up as New York Times bestseller. People are like, oh, cool, and they go ahead and they just buy it, and they're like, oh, damn, that's not the right person.
Yep.
Well, more likely is if you're not careful, somebody's going to see a book with an awesome cover down in the sponsored links and wander away from your page without ever buying the book. It's less of a problem, of course, if you've already got the reader and they're getting your 5th book in your series. But if a new person falls onto your page, you got to make sure your page is looking really good, because there is some competition right now on your very own book page.
Yep.
So I would say that now taglines and hooks are probably more important than ever in your blurb. I have not gone back and redone all my books. I've already talked about what a pain in the butt that would be for for things, but for books I'm doing now, I'm trying to do like a little, like maybe 2 or 3 sentence kind of hooky tagline thing that will show up automatically without them having to click more. Like with the one I just published, it's Shattered Past. It's a romance kind of thing, so it's kind of a long blurb. It's like his point of view, her point of view, their last, blah, blah, blah. It's the typical romance, formulaic, how you do a blurb in that genre. But I did a 3-sentence hooky little thing to try to sell you on the book before, and then if you care, then you can continue reading more. But if you just want the overview there, the hooky part, you can see that, grab the sample, and go. So I would recommend thinking about those hooks. I always used to think that stuff was kind of hokey and gimmicky, I would say, as a reader myself, like, oh, God, they're trying too hard. But now when you have a really limited space, make sure that whatever you put together for your blurb, you then go to your Amazon page and see how much of it is actually visible before somebody has to click more. And make sure that's really appealing up there.
Yeah, it's funny because I was sort of trained for this a little bit by Smashwords. Smashwords has 2 blurbs, a short blurb and a long blurb. One of them is only 400 characters or something like that. And a while back, I sort of started just taking the 400-character blurb and then adding more detail to it afterward for my long blurb. And the way it works out, roughly, is that short one, if it's stacked on top, is what's going to be above the fold, more or less. I haven't actually got the character count down. But so I got used to getting the meat of my blurb into 400 characters, and I think that's what I'm going to have to really focus on going forward, is to always have that there.
Yep, mini blurb and then blurb, or tag and hook line, then blurb. Jeff, do you have any thoughts on this before we move on?
You guys pretty much covered it. I've got the same exact thoughts.
All right. Okay, next thing I just wanted to emphasize, because we haven't talked enough about how important book covers are in this episode. In case you skipped forward the first 45 minutes, make sure you have a good book cover, because now there are like 5 other books, like I said, competing on your page. So make it awesome for your genre if at all possible.
Got to make it look as professional as possible too. Make it pop, make it that sucker pop. And consider what it's going to look like black and white for those readers that still using those Kindle Paperwhites, I guess they're called, that they don't have color on the screen.
I still have one of those somewhere. I liked it because it was the one that never ran out of batteries, and you could read it outside on the beach. And I know I mostly read on my iPad now, but I should get that guy out because it was a good little e-reader. All right, so getting reviews, I want to just mention that, of course, it's important not only if you want to get an ad at Bookbub or any of these sites. A lot of them require minimum of 20 reviews, but it's important on Amazon too, just because, especially if you have no reviews, it's people come to that page and they're thinking, whoa, what's wrong with this book? Nobody's reading it. So even if you're selling pretty well, if you don't have a lot of reviews, it's worth asking at the end of the book. If you enjoyed this book, would you please consider leaving a review? It really helps the authors, and it makes a difference when you ask. People will be like, oh, okay. Not everybody's going to do it, but I think you will find that you get more people leaving reviews than if you don't do that.
Yeah, I did. I heard someone mention that too. Is like, just put a quick little blurb at the back of your book once you finish one of the novels there. And I was like, I've got some reviews, but not many. Well, like after I think my book 2, my second book I ever published, so I'll put a quick little blurb back there. And hey, if you enjoyed the book, it really helps the indie authors. If wherever you bought the book, just say what you think, bad or good. We can take it. And wow, the reviews just started pouring in after that. I was like, oh, okay, well, that works out great. At least worked great for me. So consider if you have a really low amount of reviews, as you're saying, you want to get reviews for your titles, just put a quick little blurb back there, like kind of like under an author's note, so to speak, at the back, and just say, hey, if you wouldn't mind, it would help me out.
Yeah, it's true. Asking for reviews helps. There's a funny thing I had heard, which was that you can only put one call to action at the back of your book. And for a while, for me, it was reviews, and then I switched over to the newsletter. And then I realized that you can put as many calls to action as you want, but only one of them will ever work, because no one's going to sit and make a list of the things you wanted them to do and then go do them in order. They're going to go off and do one of those things, and they're out of your book, and they stop thinking about it. So that's really where the one comes from. If you only put one, they'll always do that one if they're going to do anything. If you put more than one, well, you start to have diluted results.
Yeah, because your reader's going to go, okay, he wants me to help him with reviews. Okay, now he wants me to sign up for the newsletter. Good grief. Okay, now he wants me to go donate blood. Okay, now I've got to.
Exactly.
I totally saw one of those that had a whole list. It was like, please go to my Facebook page, like that. Please retweet this tweet on Twitter. Make sure you give me a plus on Google Plus. And
nobody likes homework.
Nobody's going to sit there and click all those links and then after clicking them come back to your book. So forget it. Okay, when choosing your title, and you have the option of doing a subtitle on Amazon. So Amazon has gotten pickier in the last few years. They're wise to the keyword spamming kind of titles, because you'll often see people going like, oh, this is the Book of Deacon, an epic fantasy, urban fantasy / mystery / thriller that you'll love as their subtitle. And Amazon's policy now is that if the words are not on the cover of the book, they cannot be in your title field. And whether or not they actually catch you on that, it's debatable if it'll happen. I don't actually think I have the name. On the paperbacks of my Dragon Blood books, I put the Dragon Blood, book 1, blah, blah, blah. But on the ebooks, I think I just have the name, because there's no spine and room for all that stuff. And they've never dissed me for doing the series name as the subtitle. Although now that Amazon actually has their series function working, you shouldn't technically need to put the series name into the subtitle field, because there's a different spot for it. For a long time, it was questionable whether Amazon would actually link your series up, but they seem to be pretty good now, and people are getting series pages. Do you guys all have series pages?
Yeah, actually, I was looking at that a little bit earlier, but yeah, I found the big master series page of Amazon. I'm like, this person says it's really hard to get there if you don't do things right. Let's find out if I did things right. Bakken Chronicles, beautiful, there it is. Tales of Lantari, beautiful, there it is. So I was good. I was going to ask you real quick, back to that whole subtitle thing. Would it be feasible, let's say, if you release a box set and you create the cover for the box set, which obviously is the 3 books, and you say specifically on the cover, an epic fantasy trilogy that you're gonna love, and that way you can put it in the subtitle. I mean, it's gonna be on the cover theoretically, right? Would that work?
I think you can get away with that. I've seen people do it with science fiction romance. They're like, a science fiction romance, or the science fiction romance series that brings sexy aliens back, or whatever it is. So it's possible, and
By
usually
definition, it would be on the cover, so you should be able to do it.
Usually the worst that's going to happen is they'll tell you. They're not just going to banish you from KDP, probably. Most likely they'll send you an email and ask you to change it. I don't know. We're gonna talk about keywords here. What do you guys think? I've kind of found that when it comes to fiction, I don't think that many people really plug keywords into the search box and look for books that way. I know there are other people that swear by keywords, that they tinkered with, they put science fiction romance in their field, or epic fantasy, or actually more specific ones usually. If you start typing in something in Amazon's little search box, it will suggest ways to auto-complete it. And if you kind of look at those, I don't even know what examples of science fiction romance series, maybe you'd want to target that as one of your keywords. And then you come up when people do a search for science fiction romance series, because it's not so competitive and people may be searching for that. I don't know, maybe if listeners are still listening after an hour, you can let us know in the comments of the show. I think this is going to be episode 65. Yes. Are you using keywords, and has it made a difference in your sales? I found at one point, probably in 2012, I tried this with a couple of my books. I tried to get steampunk in there. I put it in the description a couple of times, and I think I had a steampunk mystery adventure or something in the subtitle. And I was coming up on the first page of results for steampunk. So that was really exciting, and it made zero difference in my sales. So that's where I come from, where I say that I don't think that many people actually search for keywords when it comes to fiction. I think it's hugely effective when searching for nonfiction. But what are you guys' thoughts on keywords?
Keywords, I think they actually do work. Is that there's been times when I'll every great once in a while, I mentioned before in some of the earlier podcasts, where I noticed some of the downloads of one of the books isn't just as many as it used to be. So I will specifically go on there and change a keyword up there, and the very next day I'll see all of a sudden I'll see that little arrow start to go right back up. I'm like, somebody's paying attention to it. I know categories works because I've botched it once where I was aiming for one category without realizing it. I clicked the category below it, and holy cow, that was not even close to the right category. It was my mistake, honest mistake. And the very next day, I see a surge in the sales there. All of a sudden, I see that I hit a top 100 in LBGT category or something. I'm like, what the hell happened here? And I went back and I looked, and it was right next to one of the other categories, and I had clicked the wrong thing. So yeah, they pays attention to it. So
yeah, that's a recipe for confused readers right there.
It's serious. I was like, holy cow, is this what's going on here? Why all of a sudden am I hitting this particular top 100 there? And I started investigating. I'm like, my bad. Let's take care of that. I mean, I like the sales, but I don't want to lead people on well, this is supposed to have this type of character, and I'm like, trust me, it doesn't. So
yeah, I have to agree that with this, when I search, I don't use keywords, and I fill in the keywords, the actual keyword section, just because I don't like to have an empty field if I can put anything there. But broadly speaking, I don't think people just feel I want a dragon book and just typing dragon and choosing whatever comes up. I feel like at the very least people are more discerning than that, and probably people are a little bit more. They're probably gonna lean more on the, if you like these books, you like that book, suggestion algorithms and also
right.
bots and stuff like that. I think those are far more important than keywords, and it's also, unfortunately, far more difficult to actually utilize those for on purpose at least.
Yeah, I think probably when they first started the keywords, people were like, okay, well, let's look for a new fantasy series that has dragons and magic and castles and swords and all this stuff. Nowadays, people are like, okay, well, what do you think is good? Oh, is this a good book? Okay, I'll see if I can find it on Amazon. I'll go and look for it. And they're punching in like the exact title or the author name or something. So I don't think the keywords are as important, but there's still parts of Amazon's algorithms that are looking at them. It's just it's not as popular as it was, I would think.
Yeah, when I first got started, I remember there were actually tags, and at the bottom you could have like, people would be like, tag my book, and you'd have 212 tags for the word dragon. They got rid of that.
Yeah, they got rid of that once they realized, the indies have better friends than the traditional publishers or authors, and we can say, oh, hey, would you mind going and do this? And they would just, push them way up on the list of searches, and Amazon's like, oh, our traditional authors are griping at us, so let's go ahead and just take that out of the picture there. So Amazon, gotta love them.
I'm not sure if even back then it actually helped that much with sales, but if you are having, stagnant sales and nothing's really working, you can't afford to do Bookbub right now or, any of the other ads, give it a try. You never know. I've definitely heard people say that after they tinkered with their keywords that it helped. So, but I did want to mention real quick that if you, for at least some of your keywords in the field, you probably want to use them. There's like not secret categories, but there's categories right now that you can be in on Amazon that you cannot choose from from the KDP dashboard. So there is a site called like KDP Select Browsing Categories, and I will totally put the link to that site in the show notes. And you can go in and you'll see that there are some categories you can get into that, like I said, you can't select. You need to know the keyword for it. I want to say sword and sorcery is still one. I can't remember if I've checked on the KDP dashboard recently, but I think you have to actually put sword in the keyword. You have to be in a fantasy category to start with, but then you have to put sword in the keywords in order to get in the sword and sorcery category. And there's several things like that. So, like I said, I'll put the link to that weird. There's a whole list that Amazon has. It's in their help files, but I don't know why they don't just make those categories accessible, but I guess it helps. So do that for probably, depending on how many categories your book qualifies for, you could have like, I think we talked to somebody, or maybe it was on one of the other podcasts, he was in 15 categories because he chose his 7 keywords, and then apparently if you, I don't know if this is still true, this was like a year ago, if you don't put a comma in, you can just keep putting, sword, romance, humor.
It's still true. You can actually do it like you want to hit like witches and wizards. You just put witches and wizards and comma, sword and sorcery, comma. You can get them in there.
Yeah. Okay. So make sure, because that'll help you more probably than keywords ever. If you can find a kind of obscure category and make the top 100 and actually be listed there, I feel that in addition to the AlsoBots, people actually do browse the top 100s for the various categories. So that can definitely help you out. All right. Next thing I have to bring up is just kind of explaining AlsoBots, because I think people get a little confused, because I guess I get emails that people are excited because they see me in their AlsoBots and they think that's doing something for them. That's not the case. Unless you go to my AlsoBots and your book is on my page, then it may be doing something for you, especially if it's on page 1 of the AlsoBots and not page 20. So basically it's just exactly what it sounds like. If somebody bought your book, also bought Jim Butcher's book, and you happen to appear on Jim Butcher's page 1, that would be awesome. It hasn't happened to me. But that's what you want. You want to be on all the other people's AlsoBots. Who's in yours doesn't really matter. Preferably, you probably have people in there with sucky covers that it's not going to distract people too much. Now, there's usually some oh God, there's a word I can't pronounce even without, yes, even without the rum, I can't pronounce that. Usually there's some of that, but a lot of times with a real popular author, you'll find out that like Ilana Andrews might be in your AlsoBots, but you're nowhere on the radar on her page because she just sells so many books, and you have to be, there has to be a lot of linking. But as we talked about before, you could possibly game this a little bit in that if you write like Ilana Andrews and she's got a new book out, and I know that's a husband and wife team, so I'm saying she anyway because it sounds like a girl's name. But if you promote it at the same time, to your list, it's possible that your book will then appear in their also bots, because you sold a lot of your book to your fans, and you just sold a lot of her books to your fans. So possibly you could get on book 1, page 1, slot 1. Am I making sense in it at all?
I know what you're referring to, but then again, you also take into consideration that for those of us that have a lot of books in the series, most of our also bots say, okay, there's Tales of Lantari book 1, also bought number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and then this book 1 of this series, and you see all my own name for page 1 of the also bots. I'm like, oh well, man, I can deal with that. But yeah, I see a lot of your name on my also bots too, Lindsay. But
right, but like I was saying, it doesn't matter what's on your page. You
Right.
want to appear on other people's pages, and it's a good sign if you see your own books in your own also bots. If you don't, and you have a series, that could actually
that
be
could be a
an
problem.
educational thing. Like, people are not going on and picking up your second book in the series. So, but a lot of time with authors that just have like 1 or 2 books out, or it's a standalone, they might not have a whole stream of their own books in the sub also bots. So that's probably enough on that. Although one last thing is, be careful with the sites that, like, if you have a new release or you haven't sold that many yet, and your also bots there's not really there yet, maybe it just says also viewed. Be careful buying an ad at maybe somebody like BK Nights on Fiverr. Good service, but they just send out everything to everyone. They're not divided by category, so you can actually end up with like erotica in your also bots for your children's books, because they just promoted it to everyone and people downloaded it willy-nilly. So that is something to be concerned about. You don't want bad company in your also bots, or just inappropriate company, I should say. So be a little careful. It's better to advertise on the sites that promote by categories than opposed to just throwing it out there. If you've actually had a lot of sales already, it shouldn't matter too much. It shouldn't affect your stuff. But all right. There's just last couple things we were going to mention. Just make sure you've got all of your pages claimed, or all of your books claimed, so they show up, like all of your series shows up in your series title. You want to make sure all that's working on your series page, and you want to make sure that when people click your name on Amazon, we should mention that you should fill out your author profile on Amazon. A lot of people do not, early on don't think to do that, but people actually click on that, and they should get your picture and your about you and a list of your books, and you can have links to your website and stuff in there. And that is done through Author Central. Just Google that and you'll find the site. This is not done through your KDP dashboard. You actually need to go to Author Central, fill out your Amazon page, and you can also claim all of your books there. So if you have new stuff out that's not showing up on your name under Amazon, go in there and make sure you claim it. Also, if you've got paperbacks or audiobooks that are not linked, like, when you go to Amazon, it should say, here's the Kindle version, here's the audiobook, here's the paperback, and whatever other special things you've done. If they're not showing up linked, you go into Author Central, and there's a help file. You probably have to email somebody there. They're usually really good about getting it together. But I would especially watch that if you're doing audiobooks. My Dragon Blood series came out on the audiobook in June last year, the first 3. And I really didn't notice. It was Podium Publishing putting it together, and I didn't notice for all the weeks that it was on pre-order that it wasn't showing up on my book page. So I don't look at my own book page that often. And so I actually had to go in and tell them, hey, this is this book, just a different thing of it, in order to get them linked. And if you're trying to sell audiobooks, which pay pretty well, and you've got good sales on your Kindle book, you do want people to see that and know that that's an option. All right. You guys have anything to say? I think we're almost done here.
No, I think that pretty much covers it. Maybe there's other little minor stuff there, but no, I think we've probably bored them long enough.
All right.
Just on the subject of Author Central, unfortunately, individual versions of Amazon, like Amazon.de and Amazon.ca and such like that, they have their own Author Centrals. So it is not one blanket one. For my translation, had to go through and do an Author Central for the German page, which is tricky because I don't speak German.
So you're saying find someone that speaks the language you're trying to do, and have them write it for you, so you can just copy and paste it.
Yeah, the translator was nice enough to do that for me, which is fortunate, because machine translated stuff is obvious that it was machine translated.
Very
All
good
right. I
point.
actually had somebody just ask me if if I wanted them to do a German version for me, and I was wondering because I was aware of this, but I've never bothered to because I think you have to make an account in each country. Is that right? Did you have to make an account?
Yeah, you have to do an Author Central account, and it's not exactly the same as doing a. I think you can have an Author Central account without having an Amazon account. But yeah, you do need to basically set up as though you're an entirely different person in each different Amazon page. You have to set up your account and then go through and do the page.
Okay. Maybe worth looking at, especially if you're doing the translations for sure.
Yeah.
And one of you guys mentioned Shelfari to go in and fill the book extras. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's just real quick. If Shelfari.com is actually, they must be owned by Amazon, because yeah, hold on, my phone's ringing. Because if you look at any book that you purchase from the Kindle store, and if you go in, looking at your little app and then showing you the different things you can do, and it used to say book extras, but now I believe it says before you go. And if you click that, if you've gone to Shelfari and you filled out the information about your book on Shelfari, you'll come up there. You can tell it like, more books in this series, books related to this, basic plot. If you want to put a quick little or question or comment to like a parental guidance. I mean, when this book is rated PG-13, here's why. I mean, that sort of thing. Anything you want to do, that's where it shows up. So if you ever wondered where that before you go thing is, it's shelfari.com. So you can go there, create yourself in a free account, claim all your books, and then you just fill out the blanks of essentially, they've got everything filled out there. Characters, if you use, they've got a place for a glossary. So if by chance you have a lot of made up names, like a lot of us fantasy authors do, it's a great way to say, okay, if I say this, I mean this. And this is that. I mean, it's just stuff like that. So it's helpful.
All right, good information. I know people must have done it for me because I haven't looked recently, but I think I used to at least have Shelfari stuff saying this is however many books in the series. Or anyway, last comment I have here is just that if you are going to try the keyword thing, you actually want to use the keywords in your description and elsewhere on the page, and this could actually help you possibly get traffic from Google as well, since Amazon is such a big authority site. But you can, in addition to doing your book description, you can fill in the editorial reviews. Obviously, you shouldn't keyword stuff in a review that somebody did for you. Those are generally for like critical or reviews from, not customer reviews. They're from if you got yourself reviewed by Publisher Weekly or somebody like that. Stick that in there. Do a lot of people with the keyword thing will do the about the author section, also done in Author Central, and throw a few keywords in there like, oh, Jeff likes to write epic fantasy with urban fantasy with space opera all mixed in. And so you can throw some keywords in there too if you want to do that. I got to be honest, I don't do any of this stuff, but my whole strategy is just to keep writing more and more books. All right, we've probably bored everybody to tears. Any parting words from anybody here? We'll have a guest next week, so you don't have to listen to us so much.
Any parting words? Don't forget to subscribe.
All right. Yeah, don't forget to leave a review. It's our call to action at the end of the show.
Yeah, there's our call to action. Just the one, so you can't get confused.
If we haven't bored you to death, by all means, let us know that we're helping, hindering, or our dogs are too noisy. Lindsay should stop drinking. Whatever.
I suppose it's worth saying, since we answered a lot of listener questions on this episode, if you have questions, feel free to leave them. We do answer them eventually.
Right. We probably won't do it on the shows where we have guests, but when we're just catching up or talking amongst ourselves, we'll try to get them in. And we appreciate it, because if you're wondering, probably everyone else is, or at least somebody else is wondering too.
Yep.
All right. That's it, guys. Thanks for listening.
All right. See you guys later.
So long.